All right, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and start building up our basket from the side. So as mentioned, if you had watched part 1 for making this base, we had finished our base, our little circle. We're actually going to flip it this way, and we're going to work in the opposite direction than we were. And so to begin, I'm going to chain 1 and start building that wall. And what we'll be doing is going through for this first row, this back loop only. So we'll start with our first one. We're going to yarn over, come through. And then if you have a two-sided crochet hook, what you would do is actually pull this right loop under the left. And then for this, I like to come from the back and pull it through. And I can demonstrate that again. So we would go back loop only, yarn over, and I'm going to bring this right side and the right loop under the left loop, bring it back, yarn over, and pull through. For those who don't have a two-sided crochet hook, it is completely reasonable that instead of just sliding back and forth, you would go through this back loop. I guess not reasonable, possible would be a better word. And when we come up here, what we would be doing is pulling our hook out, taking it, inserting it from the left side, pulling that right loop under. Oh, and then, because again, we're not sliding, putting it back in, yarning over, and pulling through. And again, to demonstrate that, we would come under this back loop only. We would take our crochet hook out, come from the other side. Now we're going to pull that right loop under the left loop, remove our crochet hook again, come in, yarn over, and pull under. So that is going to be our basic stitch. What I'm going to do is finish off this first row, and then we can come back with how we start the second. All right, so we've come to that very last loop. So again, I would come under, yarn over, pull through, right goes under left, and then I yarn over and chain 1, and I've come to the very end. So to keep this pattern going, we're not going to be doing a slip stitch and a chain to create the next row. We're actually going to just keep moving on top of the other. So if you can see how this builds here, this is going to be my first stitch of my second row, and then where you see these two connecting, this left loop between these two posts will be my second. So same stitch, I'm just going to yarn over, left under right, chain 1, and I'm actually going to mark this. When I mark these rows, it's not going to be as easy to just stack them and you can kind of watch those rows build on top of each other. I tend to bounce back and forth to keep track of being on one or the other sides of this post. The big thing is that I make sure I'm maintaining those 21 stitches. So if I look here, I can count by coming through between these posts. I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then where my safety pin is would be 21. So as long as I keep that from the next stitch to the safety pin, I'm good. And I can continue on. So as kind of noted quickly, when we're going through these stitches for all of the remaining rows, Between these posts, you can kind of see two sides to a loop. We're going to be going under this left side. And then just completing the same stitch. And chain one. Again, when we're looking at this, we can kind of see there's almost a right loop, a left loop in that center. We will go through the left. Chain one and continue on. So right loop, under left loop, chain one. And again, I'm going to finish off this row real quick. We're starting to see that pattern build, and we can go over how we would connect our next row just as a final step, and how I kind of go about keeping track of the tops. All right, we're at the very end of this second row. As you can see, so now we definitely have that same pattern that we're seeing with all of our stitches with our right, center, and left loops. I'm not going to slip stitch or chain. I'm just going to come through my first one, continue my stitch, and then here, so I could mark this side just to keep continuity. If you want to see it stacking, you could also mark this side of the stitch. You would just need to remember that you're not going into the right side. You'd be going to this left one. We could even do one extra stitch. I suppose. And then we can go ahead and mark the placement before that stitch for the start of our next row. And again, we'd be able to count to come through. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 20. So we're maintaining the stitch count for each of these rows and just stacking as we go. Just to note, how I'm counting these stitches is these loops in between the posts. But otherwise, this will just be a continuation. Going through that left loop, right under left loop, and chain one. And you'll just keep going and going until you have built out the box as tall as you would like it. To finish off, we'll just come through this first stitch, yarn over, slip stitch, and then we can just grab the rest of our yarn. Just grabbing the whole thing because I don't feel like cutting it. And that will end our row, and we've completed our basket. So you can kind of see it definitely has that vertical bar but a diagonal pattern, and kind of makes for something interesting and unique, almost like a basket but a little bit different in the stitching. Either way, hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, and we will be on our way with new ones shortly.